Okay, my name is Sandeep Rangu, and on behalf of UBS Forums, along with our partners, Automation, SAP Concur, Botminds, and ADP, I welcome you all for this exclusive virtual webinar on fourth edition of Future of Finance. Evaluate, strategize, and transform. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for sparing your time and joining the session. The webinar is happening on Teams platform, so your names will be visible in the attendee list. And also the session will be recorded. Hope you will be fine with the same. Leveraging AI to your advantage by Vikas Anand, VP Sales and Marketing. Vikas is the Vice President Sales and Marketing at Botminds. He has 22 years of industry experience and has worked with Blue Prism, Infosys and SCL. He has spent 18 years in outsourcing, consulting and sales with global clients. The last 5 years, Vikas worked with RPA and intelligent automation industry, helping organization in their digital transformation journey in identifying the right tool sets to solve their business challenges. On that note, all to you, Vikas, to start off with your presentation.
Thank you, Sandeep. Just confirming, can you see my presentation? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity to have this discussion here. So, all right. So the topic here essentially is how do you leverage AI to your advantage? And of course, the speakers that have spoken before me, Mr. Kandu and Mr. Kalappan as well, have introduced RPA. Team Computers has also introduced RPA and basically walked through that. So that's where that's where I'm going to go build upon from this point onwards. But let's talk about digital transformation. To begin with, we've all seen in the last year or in the decade before, where digital transformation has been a conversation across the the CXOs and everybody else as well, but not with a lot of success there. But in the last year and a half since COVID has actually hit, a lot of organizations have come about from the sitting on the fence to actually implementing. So one of the biggest drivers for digital transformation, I think we're very clear out of the three, which one has driven that. But across that itself, there are a couple of concerns and challenges and focus areas that the CFOs across the organizations essentially face. Number one is digital transformation takes a lot of time. That's one of the that they have. And the time really is that, there are technologies that come through. There is certain promise around with the technology, but when it comes down to delivery, it takes a little bit longer than what is expected. Whether you pick up automation, whether you pick up any other transformation, the second part is that most of the projects which deliver and promise the results, do not deliver the results as promised. It takes longer time. Even in certain automation projects, you would see that something that is expected to deliver results within 3 months, but the moment the rubber hits the road, the actual implementation begins, the plan essentially derails and goes to double the time. And this is from both the sides of what is understood to be the problem statement. So there's a lot of background noise. Sunny, can you just take a look at that, please?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Right. So when it comes down to delivering the results as planned, of course, that is very, very key because you're looking at the overall financial responsibility and the growth of the organization as well. So that kind of needs to be addressed. Third key important key focus area really is having the right information before you need it. And this is important where, gone are the days where you would expect a report to come in by the end of the week, and that sounds to be okay. You're basically looking at, all the automations, integration, BIs, analytics, everything bringing into a user-friendly dashboard kind of a way, making it available, as and when you need it and even before you need that. The fourth piece is, the data security, risk management, basically keeping track of the data that you have and making sure the data stays safe. That becomes a key priority. And this is where, we have come back from, running on-prem and then going onto the cloud, and then we are going back on IoT in certain scenarios. So that's where the data becomes important, where the data is, where the access is getting through. I think that's kind of pretty important. And the last piece is, knowing what's next. And I think I've seen Mr. Kundu and Mr. Kalappan very articulately identifying the new technology, which is the RPA and the AI, and providing the recommendation. I think the recommendation that came from Mr. Kalappan is really spot on. If you have to just put a gist on how do you go ahead and get started with RPA and AI and what are the things you have to look at, those are the three things that need to be basically looked at. So that's the kind of understanding that a CFO needs to have in terms of what the technology is that's coming in, what can it do, and which one do you want to take a bet on, and which one do you want to just not pick up at the moment. So with that comes in, where is your organization on the digital maturity? This is a very standard, format of a standard model to evaluate your digital maturity. Are you reactive? Are you just doing firefighting? Or are you organized but still heavily manual? Are you digitized? Have you converted your papers to digital documents? Are you connected? And this is more on the IoT front, but I would take in the fact that the connected has taken a very different meaning in the last year and a half, where a lot of people are not sitting in a single office space where everything is provided from a network connectivity standpoint, application resources, everybody's kind of sitting out in their respective places. Is everybody connected? And at the end is, do you have your processes in the intelligent way, which means that you have AI, in place as well. So that's the digital maturity model. I mean, you should all, my recommendation is to look at your own organization. If you are just responsible for a process, look at your process and see where are we and what is the next stage and what does it take to get onto the next stage, across the digital maturity curve. Now, majority of the data that comes within the organization, essentially, we look at a lot of data, but a lot of data is unstructured at the moment. It's 80% of the data, as Gartner estimates here in 2021, is unstructured. And the challenge with the current widespread automation tools essentially is that RPA by design only handles structured data. The extension to RPA, which is IPA, and then you have components around that has the extension to understand how the unstructured data is handled. But by design, RPA is meant to handle large volume, predefined input, predefined output, standard, set processes. But the fact that if an organization has to look at digital transformation, you have to deal with that unstructured data, which is, majority of that part. So how do you look at an automation and a transformation overall? So I've kind of broken this down into three different, steps to make it very, very simple. So across the x-axis, I've got complexity, and across the y-axis, I've got value. So there are things which can be handled through simple automation, and this is something traditionally, everybody has done with Excel macros, very simple scripts or small bit of automation to a certain extent. And of course, that's where the RPA essentially picked up as the very, very first simple processes, was the very first, types of processes that RPA picked up. Of course, complex workflows, also came into the play within the RPA realm. And that's where the extension for RPA became IPA, where there's an extension through artificial intelligence. But when it comes down to unstructured data, I believe that there needs to be a different approach. There needs to be an AI first approach. So you need to look at it differently rather than saying, okay, we got an RPA in place, but let's deal with unstructured data by breaking it down. It needs a very different kind of approach to be able to use the latest breakthroughs in technologies which are available from an AI standpoint, and then utilize them to your advantage. So as Botminds, we are an AI first platform. We're not an RPA platform with an AI support around it. We are an AI first platform, but of course we have our IPA, RPA capabilities built around that for all the organizations which haven't invested in RPA as yet, but do need end-to-end automation. So we provide that. So we have a different way of looking at automation overall. So we look at it as a combination of speed and intelligence. So speed comes from RPA, very, very clear, or automation of any kind. But intelligence is what comes in from people. This is where the SMEs, the resources, the ones who are currently converting the unstructured information to structured information so that automation can begin. So that whole idea, that whole knowledge which SMEs have is where the intelligence lies. So at Botminds, we look at speed and intelligence, ability to combine both of them and extract the intelligence from the SMEs and build them into various AI models is where we look at, in terms of automation. So just to introduce, we are the world's first unified IDP and IPA platform. And our approach is very simple. We are an AI-first platform. We have a no-code automation. So anybody on this call really, you can use our platform because it's a no-code platform. It's just drag and drop. It's meant for business. There are ready-made modular blocks that are available, and I'll just talk about them. And it's an end-to-end platform. And the other key thing here is that we are able to deliver the results. You're able to get the results, through Botminds platform, through an AI-first platform within a few weeks. We're not talking about, a couple of months, a couple of quarters. We're talking about the ROI coming to you within a few weeks. So let's see what the platform essentially looks like. So very, very simplistically, you look on the left-hand side, these are the documents that come through. And we're talking about unstructured documents. Unstructured documents can be in a variety of formats. You've got PDF, documents coming through, native PDF, non-native PDF. You could have an open web. You could have your, Sensex website and BSC's website and say, okay, this is what I need to monitor. I need to be able to extract all the information that I need from there, and I need to be able to bring it out into my systems. That's unstructured information. So all of the pieces, sit on the left. We have our Botminds platform that sits in the middle. And what you get as the output is the output that you require. So you're looking at, coming down into a PDF, into an Excel, into a CSV, TSV, or an API connecting back to Automation Anywhere or any other RPA platform. Or if you do not have an RPA platform, then we go ahead and do the connection end to end. So basically, all that you see is you've got the input, you've got the platform, which is business process platform, and you have the output. At the back, that's where three key components essentially are working. So number one, we have the IDP, which is the document processing engine, where we have our document AI, table AI, text AI. And not to give you technical terms here, but what it means really is that we understand any type of document. So if this is a contract, we can differentiate a contract, from an invoice, from a resume, from a bank statement, from an annual report. Within annual report, within invoices, we can find out where the information really is, depending upon whether you have them in the tables, whether you have in the nested information, multiple vendors mentioned over there. It doesn't really matter. We are able to extract, all that information. And once we've done that extraction, the second layer that comes in is our AI Studio, which essentially is one-click model generation. So this is literally taking the intelligence out of the SME and putting into a machine learning model. So you have the ability to put that across in terms of that. And of course, all of this is supported through human in the loop, which means that at any given point of time where you've done the extraction and you're providing feedback to the application, to our platform, that goes as part of the learning, and you're basically improving and increasing the accuracy of the platform as and when you start using that. So again, very simple 4 steps. You've got ingestion of the documents. So you provide us the documents. The understanding is there as part of the platform. Then you go ahead and do the train. That by you mean we will do that for you, or you can do it yourself. What that means is that you just specify and say, okay, these are the invoices on my accounts payable process. I want this information to be extracted. That is what we call as training. So once that is done, roughly takes about a normal SME, it'll take about a day and a half to do that activity, and your process starts extracting the value, and you have, and you can create that into an AI model there. Now, key important thing for any organization really is that there are multiple tools who can just extract invoices and do the AP processes. You can pick up a cookie cutter tool in certain scenarios. But what is different about Botminds platform essentially is that we are a horizontal platform. We have, we have all these models which are ready, and all these models have the ability to understand any type of document, any type of process. And with that, it means that for you, you don't have to look at or spend or invest or evaluate multiple platforms for multiple different processes and verticals that you have within the organization. A single platform basically can address, whether it's a legal, counsel that needs, support, whether it's your claim processing, whether it's your market research that needs it, whether it's the ESG data that needs to be extracted, or an accounts payable that needs to be done. All of that can be singularly done within the platform. And this is a cloud-based platform. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So next couple of slides, I've talked a lot about theoretical pieces. I'll show some illustration, and I have a case study, and all of this is running visuals for you to look at. So what you see here is an extraction from tables on the left-hand side. On large pieces is our platform that is running. On the extreme left is a large annual report from where the table information needed to be extracted. So as you would understand, for us, it's very simple to just look at this table and say, yeah, I know this is 2019, 2018, which means these are 2 years. There's an information about net income. There's information about net sales. No big deal. I know where it is. But when it comes down to being able to extract that, through automation, through RPA, through OCR, or through AI, this is challenging. This is not something that a simple OCR is able to track to a large extent, because then you need a lot of stuff, post-processing done over there as well. So our table understanding essentially has the ability to say, okay, I understand what is bold. Bold is important. I understand what the column is. If there's a heading and then there's a grand total at the bottom, I know what the correlation between the two are. And that's something that is inherently built within our platform. And we're able to extract all this information out on the real time that you see on the screen. Of course, you can take this out on an Excel, on a PDF format, or through an API. Then looking at a very large document, so tables are great, but how about actual unstructured document, right? You're talking about a document that is 300 pages, large here, and you have literally, paragraphs of information which is mentioned with not much reference to where the information needs to be extracted. So here we are extracting information about, we're doing the extraction about employees, stock details, their R&D expenses. All of this information is written somewhere within the paragraphs, within the conversation, or within the report that has been generated. And that is one of our strength areas at Botminds. We are able to extract information because we have the semantic understanding, we have the document understanding of what the document really is, how everything is essentially laid out, and we're able to build that out. And what you see here is an extraction. The model was essentially built by, one, I wouldn't call it a developer, but one user from our side within about 2.5, 3 days time. So that's the rough timeline that you're looking at to be able to get, to this level. Now, there has been some discussion, and almost everybody's spoken about the invoice extraction and accounts payable, and I thought I'll just add my 2 cents here as well. So it's not a very complicated invoice on the left-hand side, but in this scenario, in this particular client, we had, roughly about 12 million invoices, coming through on an annual basis. Very, very complicated invoices. This is a very simple format. Those invoices essentially had multiple, tables within tables, which is extremely complicated for anybody to really solve. And we're not just extracting value, we are also able to normalize. And, Team Computers mentioned earlier that, you're able to deliver that out to the integrated platform. You can do, multi-checks, you can do maker-checker principle. Exactly the same logic works, over here as well. You go ahead and extract the value. We can sanitize that, we can normalize that, and we can just, correspond that on the basis of the backend information that is available, the source of truth that may be available at your side. So I'll take another example here really quickly. When it comes down to risk profile analysis, for this engineering organization, the construction company, we were able to, look at big documents that were coming in about, 10,000 pages long. They had a very large challenge because it's a very, very manual intensive process, going through the pages, being able to extract the risk clauses, which are, conditional, subjective in terms of, yeah, this is a risky one, this is okay, acceptable, etc. So all these things needed to be looked at. And the challenge with the manual process was, A, it was time consuming, but B, it was also that a lot of key important clauses and non-standard clauses were being missed out. And we were able to help this organization, reduce the overall bid analysis time by about 10x and improve their productivity by, 300%. I'll show you a similar example, on the way that I've shown the demo here. So this is our term loan financing. It's a very, very large, document, and this requires, risk analysis. You can see that this is roughly about 260-page, document. For illustration, to make it simple so that it's all visible, I've only extracted 4 pieces of information here. And you can see that we've got this billing type, which is written somewhere in the document. The billing type is actually mentioned. A key thing is we're not doing find and display to find where billing type is mentioned, and then we find that and find the information. That's not the case here. It's actually literally understanding of what that scenario or the objective is in terms of understanding. So that's there. All these 4 pieces of information has been extracted, regardless of wherever they are in the document. And what you would also see a demonstration of our deep linking, which essentially means that any point you click on the information, it's not just extraction. You basically get to know where the value actually is written. So you can verify that. And if required, you can do the correction and you can do the update over there. One of the other examples, the document that will open up, you will see that the dates and the maturity dates, which are essentially mentioned, are not just example of dates. They are a reference of the day. Like this billing frequency says the last day of each month of June, September, and December. So if somebody was to look at just a billing frequency and say, what is the date? It's a monthly, it's quarterly, etc. It's not as simple as that. I mean, depending upon what that information is. And then you see the red and the green highlight, which is there. And that is us, our platform, recommending to you that this seems to be out of the bounds based on what you have specified as a source of truth, saying that, no, it's not okay. It should not be the last day. It has to be the first day. It cannot be a March, December. It has to be a specific other month. What you see me do right now is show you an extraction. So this is a very simple, typical standard PDF output that we've got. And with that, the key important thing is the context again is never lost. So the moment you click on the information on where the information was extracted from, you're taken to that, our platform, that document, that page, that value, and you can see that the prorating information essentially is there in the middle. So all of this comes in bundled, and you're able to utilize, our AI's first capabilities essentially, and in just a matter of weeks, you're able to, get the benefit out of that. So really quickly, there may be a few questions on how it is deployed. So we are a cloud-first, cloud-only deployment at the moment, so we can deploy it in our cloud.
We are overshooting time here.
Yes, I'm just finishing. Give me a minute, please. So we are doing the Botminds cloud, and then we have a private cloud, and the private cloud essentially allows you to go ahead and submit, run this essentially on your environment itself. And the key piece on that environment really is that you are able to keep all the data, within your organization. Our AI essentially gets deployed within the platform, right? What that means is that none of the data essentially comes down to Botminds, for processing. So that's the key, piece over there. And of course, all the other pieces in terms of enterprise readiness, is there. And like I mentioned, very simple, 3 processes. You import data, you provide examples, and automation of workflow, and all of that gets done, within a few weeks' time. So the kind of output that you're looking at, the kind of, the benefits that you're looking at in terms of the operational efficiency and the increase in capacity, all of that essentially is delivered to you within a few weeks' time. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions here or over the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas, for your presentation. We do have one question in the chat box that we'll take on immediate basis. And the question is, what are your thoughts on data lake to make linkage and convert unstructured data into more structured data?
Sure. So in terms of the unstructured data, structured data, I mean, it essentially comes in on the flow that you essentially have on the data lake. So if you've got a lot of data that is coming through, we are able to convert that into structured. Now, depending upon the business scenario and the business case that you may have at the end, if you're looking at the fact that the only way you can currently function is to be able to extract key information from the unstructured piece, then of course that's how that would work. And my recommendation really is that you need to look at an AI-first platform to be able to address that. I haven't addressed creation of data lake here, but the point really is that from an unstructured to structured data, there's definitely, you need to pick that up, because that's where it expands the variety of things that can be automated, and it really opens up the ways to expanding the number of processes that your organizations can handle at the moment.
Okay.
Question, and you can ping me on chat later. Thank you.
Yes. So if you have any questions, participant, Vikas still with us, please do drop your questions in the chat box, and we'll ensure that Vikas addresses them, and we will also divert via email your questions to him. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation and for the insights. Thank you. Okay, let's move to our panel discussion. That will be CFO Talks, conversation with leaders on the transformation journey. For that, I will first like to invite our panel moderator, Manish Shangi, who is the Senior Director of Finance, CFO, and Board Member, India and South Asia with Thermo Fisher Scientific. To join him, we will have Sumedha Verma, who is the Regional Sales Director with SAP Concord, Ramesh Iyer, Senior Director, Global Sales, Thermo Fisher Scientific, CFO with Nitco Limited, Jatin Dalal, who is the CFO with Wipro Limited, and Sandhya Sharma, CFO with Schindler India Limited. We also have Bhaskar Lakshman Group, CFO with TVS Automobile Solution, and to join them, we will have Gokul Ganpati, CEO Botminds AI. On that note, all to you, Manish, to start off with your panel discussion.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to my panel members. So, considering the positive time, I'll just directly jump in to our panel discussion. So let me start with Jatin. Jatin, you've had a very steep growth run at Wipro in the last 19 odd years, and you've practically touched every facet and sub-facet of the finance, managing the Indian and the European business. What would be your top 2 tips to the CFOs in order to ride the waves of the impending economic recovery? And what, according to you, would CFO of 2020-21 look like?
Sure. Thanks, Manish, for the question, and thank you for having me here. I would say 2 things. We are living in the world of C's. I think the C's is cloud and collaboration and cybersecurity. It unfortunately also ties with COVID, but let's ignore that for a moment. So I think these are the areas. If you are a CFO, you must have a good understanding yourself and not overly rely on your CIO or Chief Digital Officer for that. So I think the first step is how much do you understand about some of this and how much you can apply to your business. And assuming you all of you are all learned speakers and participants understand this quite well. How do you build 2 things? How do you build a digital business model, which every business has now needs to build, and a very agile back office. Your customer should be able to reach you anywhere, anytime, and you should be able to respond. And your back office in everything that you do should be agile enough to be able to respond irrespective of whether you are in office, not in office, and otherwise. So these are my 2 things, and we are constantly focusing in Wipro. We continue to operate at 98% odd from work from home all over the world, and we have had a surge in demand. It's an outcome of the COVID situation for IT services that our customers need, and thankfully we have been able to provide that well. So Manish, I would summarize by saying a virtual business model and a very agile back office is what should be the priorities for us as CFOs in 21-22.
No, Jatin, very well said, I think, and you also mentioned about the need for real-time data, and I think that's becoming no longer a luxury. It's becoming a must-have thing if you really want to serve your customers effectively, apart from driving your growth and profitability. So thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, Jatin. Appreciate it. If I may request Bhaskar. Bhaskar, you've had a very broad-based, rich experience across multiple industries, in oil and gas, FMCG, telecom, software, automotive. So if you were to keep all that background in mind, and since you've seen multiple markets in your career, what, according to you, are the key trends that are impacting financial operations? And what should the CFOs be prepared for in 2021 to manage this chaos and volatility?
Hi, Manish. Hi, everyone. Hope my voice is audible first. Let me check that. Is that okay?
You're audible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you. Actually, thanks UBS Forum for giving this opportunity. Yes, Manish, worked for multiple industries, almost about 35 years now. But to quote Bharatiyar, it's Indru Pudidai Pirandum, which means that we are born today. So I will quote that as my word, because it's something that we learn so much every day. And as we move into the lockdowns and restricted activities, the two things which I see for the CFO is there is nothing like one size fit for all, because all of us come from different industries and different backgrounds, and the industry varies. So I'm trying to generalize something which, for if you are in a market leader situation, if you are having cash rich operations kind of stuff, then it's a great opportunity for the CFO to grab the market, to come out with ideas in terms of expansion of your business. For example, pharmaceutical industry, which is really thriving, and sanitizing industry. So those industries which are thriving, automation. So it's a different one. But if you are in an industry which is dependent on, like, for example, like us, which is automobile industry, which is facing really a tough challenge, then you have to be really agile to taking control of the situation in terms of your cash, how you manage cash, and improve the liquidity and provide for the future. Because right now the demands can be much lower. I mean, you're talking about today's newspaper talks about automobile industry. So the two things is, one is that grab the market opportunities if you are cash rich and if you're technology savvy, and go for cash and controls if you're in a growth market and you're dependent on the broader economy. That's my take, Manish.
Thanks, Bhaskar. So I think once again, agility and focusing on the trend which works for your industry, whether it's exponential demand and then how do you capitalize that by expanding quickly, or crash in demand where you manage your cash properly, will be key. So great input, Bhaskar. Thanks so much. Ramesh, you've had a great run of 20 years at Godrej, correct? And you dealt with FMCG business there, and now switch gears to a very different industry with Netco, which is a large listed company in ceramic walls and tiles. And you must be very different market trends from what you saw in Godrej versus what you're seeing now. And those trends would have also changed over the last 12 months with some peaks and some troughs. So what are your views about how do we interpret the market trends, and what kind of impact does it have on the financial operations from largely the FMCG and the homeware industry?
Yeah, sure, Manish. I think the trends that we've been seeing in financial operations in recent times has been more on liquidity management and productive deployment of funds. I would second Bhaskar in his view on this approach. The availability of sufficient liquidity has never been more important than during these pandemic times. I think this is particularly true for cash deficit companies. A lot of industries have been seeing unfulfilled order banks, and the main constraint here is seen in making the product available, that is a supply chain. I think somewhere here is where the role of the CFOs and financial professions can make a big role in the business, in identifying areas where monies are locked up in the business, be it properties, be it fixed assets, be it current assets, and find ways and means to monetize those illiquid assets. I think once the money is freed from these assets, that could be channelized to enhance the supply chain more effectively, to be able to produce good inventories, and that can be used to service the unfulfilled demand, and that will enable to rotate the working capital far more quickly.
So true, Ramesh. And I think a very, very different perspective, correct, of looking at cash. One is conserving and managing it, another, as you say, freeing it up, correct, from traditional assets which have been locked down. And we probably never focused on them in the past because it was not the need. But very, very aptly put, the CFOs have a great role to play there, and go back, revisit their balance sheets and see what can they do to release the cash. And unfulfilled demand in select sectors is a very real challenge, correct? Whether it's FMCG, whether it's medical supplies. So I think great advice for the participants on this forum. Thank you so much, Ramesh.
Thank you.
Sandhya, you're a great woman leader and a classic example of how a finance person has had a journey from being an auditor to a finance person, and then a great business leader and co-pilot to the CEO across Botminds, Mahindra, and most recently Schindler. So if I were to steal your thoughts on growth, since you are so much focused on business partnering, what are the best digital transformation strategies which you think can help us sail through these crises? And what are the areas or initiatives you would like to accelerate to drive business growth?
Thanks, Manish, and thanks everyone for having me. It's difficult times, so just a word of caution for everyone. Please do take very good care of yourself and your loved ones. Yeah, digital transformation, I would say very renewed focus on, as Ramesh mentioned, on cash and everything, brought back the limelight on finance, I would say. So to some extent, although we don't want COVID, but yes, it brought finance into quite a lot of limelight. A lot of business decisions were dependent on us, and many of us are looking after IT as well. So definitely transformation becomes a natural extension. I would say as an organization, Schindler is focused on elevators and escalators and installing and maintaining them. So we were quite digitalized in our offerings, product-wise as well as process-wise, since I would say quite early days. I would put here what we did at local level was analyze it at the ecosystem level, that from the core, like from the customer point of view, what are the things that we need to have, from employee point of view, from vendors point of view, and from the other stakeholders point of view. And we really focused on each of the ecosystem partners and how we can ease the journey from digitalization perspective. Like our accounts payable is a very small team, a lot of automation done over there. Our accounts receivable is a very small team, quite digitalized over there in the offerings. In terms of our business processes and MIS, quite a lot of them are available to the stakeholders and to the business partners on click of a button. So I would say these all helped us to sail through the pandemic. But one important factor I would say in our overall journey is it is always a play between the mind and the heart, because there are quite a lot of decisions which will not justify the ROI in terms of the digital transformations, but we need to think that how it will help us in terms of the customer journey and focus from that point of view, as well as bring efficiency in the whole process. Many a times, and I have had a failure in one such digitization project, it actually become more complicated than what it earlier was. So quite a learning for me from that project to ensure that efficiency improvement is one area which we constantly keep an eye on. I would say overall these things helped me and helped the team sail through the pandemic. But there were small adjustments also required to the BCP processes. I would say simple, when we started last year, March, not all our people had laptops. Few of them had desktops. We really never had thought that there would be a time where everyone would have to work from home. So I would say it is a marriage of the customer expectation, the customer journey, the cash situation of the organization to invest, the BCP processes, and overall expectation of the employees also to ensure that they have a smooth time on the field, I would say. Thank you, Manish.
Great thoughts, Sanjay. And you truly spoke like a business leader rather than a CFO, who really believes in the concept where ROI cannot always be prioritized, correct? At times, the ROI has to be deprioritized, and the customer and employee experience has to be prioritized over that. And I can totally relate to what you said in the B2B part, correct? One is we live in the VUCA world. So how quickly are we able to change our strategies and our actions to move strategy to action? And the speed of that is really important. So thanks so much for sharing all of that. Really appreciate that. Again, a brilliant example of a woman technology leader, and with your meaningful stint with the two large technology houses, TCS and SAP. I would be keen to understand what do you think about efficiency, especially because automation has such a big role in making our operations efficient. So from a prioritization point of view, given the projected growth forecast, what are the technologies a CFO should invest in for finance transformation and achieve an unprecedented level of finance efficiency?
Thank you so much for the question. By the way, I have been enjoying the discussion. It is very, very engaging. And so just, getting on with the question. So what I believe is that unprecedented level of finance efficiency could mean four things. One could be like scalability to prepare for company growth and new markets, being able to grow the business profitably, accurate forecasting and financial reporting, and minimizing risk to the organization. And all of these four, require CFOs to definitely utilize technology for transformation. And transformation, which also includes redesign of internal financial processes and upskilling of people, amongst the other things. So technologies that I am seeing CFOs prioritize today include robotics, which is definitely going to take over all the back office operations in areas like AP and AR. Sandhya did mention about her team that they have a very, very thin team in this area. And so the result is that in the next 5 years, that I believe that many transactions will be handled without any intervention. For example, streamlining workflow management such as expense approvals, invoices, or reimbursements. And I also believe that more than half of the companies are currently expecting, or they also expect RPA to have a significant impact on their FP&A processes over the next 2 years. So RPA will surely drive extreme automation, resulting in greater capacity for value-added activities for CFOs, like maybe supporting business model transformation, M&A, or other major capital investment decisions. The other one is data and analytics, which will be critical. That is both the predictive and the cognitive part. As CFOs today, need information for decision making to be available in near real time, as annual and static budgets are definitely replaced with more advanced dynamic financial reporting, which includes your enhanced, cost and profitability reporting, rolling forecast, and zero-based budgeting, etc. Which in turn also allows organizations or the CFOs to have a tighter control, and it also allows for a dynamic resource allocation so that CFOs can provide best value to the business and grow the business profitably. The other one could be, connected cloud. And what I mean by this is that connecting all the internal siloed applications on cloud and also plugging in information from all the external applications or data sources, which can help, CFOs develop a single view of, their liquidity position, cost, compliance, and also the risk to the organizations. So investments in application platforms, which not only help solve a particular problem, but also help the organization connect with the overall ecosystem, should definitely be evaluated. And lastly, all transformations rely on assumptions about the future. And using whatever information is available, CFOs should try to develop a reasonable expectation of market and business conditions and craft, I would say, a transformation ambition, which can drive very realistic and executable outcomes. So that was my point of view on this.
Thanks, Sumedha. And I think you did try and cover a lot of topics, correct? So I think starting with the heart of our business or role, which is managing our routine operations like the AR AP, where you mentioned about RPA, about the data and analytics and the need for real-time data to be able to forecast and help the business leaders gauge what is coming their way. even to the extent of M&A. And I really love what you said about data connectivity, correct? I think as CFOs, we all struggle where we know that the data does exist in the system, but they are so disparate and disconnected that we are not able to convert that data into information or a story, as they say in these days, to be able to utilize it. So really appreciate it, and thanks so much for sharing all those insights. Gokul, I'd like to continue on this thought of efficiency, and considering your journey and being a technology wizard from eBull to Vishwa to Mobias, and most recently with your venture at Botminds, where you've been leading a very effective team as a CEO for almost 6 years. How do you see efficiency playing in for CFOs, and where should they be investing in? What should they be prioritizing in the next year or so? Gokul, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Hey, first of all, thanks, Manish, and thanks for the opportunity, UBS. Yeah, it's a great question, actually. First of all, great points, Sumedha, and I really like the upskilling and re-engineering the processes, internal processes to the new AI era or automation era. So, to take the question, Manish, as others pointed out, accounts payable, payroll processing, or expense management, claims, yeah, automating all of these is a must. To put it other way, these are the classic first use cases automated with RPA many years ago, or it's well matured nowadays. But I like to take this discussion further. The focus now should be the CFO's focus should be on intelligent automation, right? Like transforming your office as well as the business to the emerging AI driven enterprise. That's critical, right? So now you cannot have a digital transformation initiative discussion without talking about AI, without talking about document understanding and stuff like that. So this is big. This is important because I even heard other CFOs talking about now CFOs are also involved in automation initiatives, or regulate risk. Doubling up as a risk officer, because CFO office responsible for keeping the organization up to date with the regulatory changes or compliances, and also they're keen about ROI. So the technologies we have to focus is actually with AI, and how you can leverage AI to achieve efficiency. And you cannot just stop with automating in a data entry task. Now a lot of crazy things happened in the last few years in AI. Now literally AI can read and understand documents, right? We have seen processes that never thought about like a process that can be automated. Now yes, you can attempt to automate. How about for example, you have lots and lots of contracts or agreements in your organization. How about an AI that can identify documents that need your attention because of a recent change in the regulation? Or how about now, for example, people are talking about ESG. More and more you have to publish about your ESG position also. How about an AI that can flag you? Okay, this is something that needs your attention. So my simple recommendation is, it's in the AI space. What I'm saying is in a kind of explosion in terms of the use cases that you can automate, or the scenarios you can automate. And certainly it's time to relook at the processes. You don't have to limit yourself to accounts payable or the claims or such processes. You can go further. You can go and identify where heavy subject matter expertise involved, or non-standard processes. By leveraging AI, you can remove subjectivity. So that's what I will recommend to CFO office as emerging technologies, or the technologies you have to look into. Hope I answered your question, Manish. I'm happy to add.
You did, absolutely did. And Gokul, what you said kind of reiterates what Sumedha said also. And again, to your point, AI is no longer a buzzword, correct? It's the most recent reality, and it's no longer a luxury or a bragging right. But if you're not leveraging, you and your company are going to lose in the race. So, and to your point again, it's no longer limited or restricted to structured part of the processes, correct? Yeah. This can be if thought through correctly and channelized correctly, it can be applied even to the non-structured part of the operations CFOs are dealing with, and sometimes to what other speakers said, even to the extent of leveraging it for M&As. So great thoughts, Gokul. Great thoughts. I think I'll pick up a couple more questions. So, Sumedha, back to you. Since you are with TCS and SAP and are seeing a lot of industries and customers and clients, I would be keen to understand what do you think about competition, correct? In these difficult times, what are some of the recommendations you have for the CFOs where they can embrace intelligent technologies to not only create value, but even use that information as a differentiator weapon of choice and gain competitive advantage?
Sure. Thank you so much for the question again, Manish. So I believe that intelligent technologies consist of machine learning, blockchain, IoT, data intelligence, data and analytics. So I spoke about some of these use cases for machine learning, data and analytics earlier, but here on I would like to share a very different perspective. So I believe that intelligent technologies definitely help CFOs to stay ahead of the game, but they also help improve employee productivity and engagement. And I believe that employee engagement is a direct result of experience, which is an interplay between an organization's culture, technology, and the physical environment they are in. And a positive employee experience happens when one's perception of the culture, technology, and the workplace matches their expectations. And today employees want their organizations to provide a workplace experience which matches what they have come to expect as customers and in other areas of their life, that is meaningful, personalized, user-friendly, and digital. So when organizations provide this to their employees, they, I believe, promote optimal organizational performance, which definitely helps employees to do their best work, and that is something which fosters innovation and can also positively impact the business at scale. So I think that was my bit, and this has pretty much been proven by research as well, that organizations which create exceptional employee experience definitely have a much higher employee productivity and are definitely more profitable than the others. Yeah, so that was my bit on it, Manish.
A very, very different way of thinking about competition, Sumedha. I at least haven't heard how technology in a virtuous cycle impacts the employee experience, enables them to innovate more and thereby create competitive advantage. So you kind of covered the whole people, process, innovation, and the growth cycle very, very nicely in a minute and a half. So I really appreciate that thought. I'll just pose the last question. I know we have short time, and I'll open that question, Bhaskar, Ramesh, and Sandhya, to all three of you all to share your thoughts. I think working capital and real-time data is something we all are crazy about, and for the right reasons, correct? Because that has the potential to choke the business or grow the business very, very quickly. So as a trusted advisor to your CEOs, how would you help him assess priorities and outcomes quickly so that they can support the business during this period, which are of massive volatility, and anticipate some of the high priority and potential outcomes during this pandemic?
So
we'll go with Bhaskar first. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Manish. Actually, thanks for asking this question because in our company, we completely took advantage of the COVID situation and focused on improving liquidity and improving the working capital through best efforts on collection and supply chain management. And for several years, the working capital movement, when you calculate the cash flow from operations, working capital movement was negative always. And this year, FY21, we had a positive working capital movement, which is actually credit goes to the team which were in the field with amidst the peak COVID, and also the system that we worked on tracking the inventory and AR movement, and also working with the suppliers in terms of their payment scheduling and working with the banks for structuring the payments. So the combination of this actually really worked. And today in FY21, we reported a positive working capital movement after a couple of years. So the experience that is that, every crisis, is an opportunity, which I only recall the book, which I read several years back on Theory of Constraints by Goldratt. And that is something that, when it comes to your mind, when you go through the crisis, your mind constantly works on how we can actually address this. So this is very, very, important milestone for us. And in fact, that is what I share with my fraternity here, is that it's a great advantage for all of us, to plunge and then reinvent some of the things that we've been taking for granted. Yes, working capital will be negative because here in the industry where we are in, B2B2C, 90 days credit is kind of taken for granted, which need not be the case. And, with the banks coming to a rescue in terms of structuring, it always helps. So great opportunity for us. And as a team, I think this working capital can be made as a positive number in your cash flow from operations.
Lovely. I think a great thought, Bhaskar, in terms of theory of constraints and, how do we not only survive but thrive and in adversities by challenging the status quo. So great thoughts. Thank you so much. Ramesh, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. I think in our case, we were a cash deficit zone even before the pandemic. So we realized it's going to be far more struggle for us to tide over than as compared to many other companies. And therefore, most of the cost optimization programs we had started way back well in advance. We shut showrooms where the footfalls were less. We reduced travel costs. We reduced rentals in many places in such a way that our operating costs actually came down by about 15% on a sequential basis. Similarly, in terms of working capital, in select cases, we decided to sacrifice profitability in favor of liquidity. So for instance, inventories which were actually not moving for a long period of time, we even decided to sell it at around cost, just to be able to infuse funds into the entity so that good funds will result into good inventories. Those good inventories will result into good receivables, and thereby you ensure that your working capital gets rotated far. Similarly, for our customers' AR, we offered schemes and discounts just to be able to get upfront payments from our customers before the debt actually going bad, because you really want to see that the money is protected. It's a great kind of a trade-off between profitability and liquidity, where you really need to choose which one to kind of prioritize over the other. So a lot of mix of bags of actions, decisions had to be taken depending on particular choices, particular circumstances in which you are in. You have to ensure that the business is running, business is growing, business is profitable. At the same time, liquidity has to be injected from all funds within the balance sheet, off balance sheet, etc., to see to it their business momentum continues. That's my point of view on that.
Mahesh, thanks. Ramesh, thanks. And I think a great way of thinking about how the CFO can make a big difference between balancing profitability and liquidity, correct? Taking some of these unconventional calls of liquidating inventory at cost, giving discounts for freeing up cash, not only helps the organization keep going, but also helps them serve more and more customers by churning both your AR and inventory faster, and thereby serve the larger economy and society during these tough times. So, Sandhya, over to you for your thoughts.
I would say as mentioned by Bhaskar, also theory of constraints, I took this opportunity to tell everyone that collections is not only a finance topic. I would say, and I have, it's a pleasure for me that I have been able to achieve it. I don't have to do a collections review now, which is a big time freer for me. And this has been an effort for last, I would say from last quarter 1 and quarter 2, the financial year ones, where the focus was constantly on how we can improve collections. But now the CEO and all other field operations member talk about collections. So if my collection report does not go for a day, I have many queries on it, and it makes me immensely happy that it has been a change in the organization's perspective, that cash used to be only driven by finance, and CFO is the only person who loses sleep on it. So I have made sure that everyone loses sleep over it, if not collected. So that's right, my take on it.
No, great of thinking, correct. And when the frontline people get involved in some of these austerity tasks, which are important for the organization, it can make a whole lot of difference, correct? And that's where the collective wisdom and the collective effort comes in. So I can't thank the panelists enough for taking the time out in such busy times. And I think if I were to sum up this whole session, I'll just say that there are more and more companies where CFOs are taking up the CEO or the CEO roles, correct? And CFO is in a unique position to be co-pilot at times, and the pilot of the organization to glide them through these turbulent times. I think my personal expectation is the next decade we'll see a lot of CFOs becoming formally the CEOs and CEOs with the spread they have across all the functions, the impact they have across various sub-functions, and how they help drive the CEO, the business. So thanks a ton, team, and I really appreciate your spending time with us, sharing your insightful thoughts. Thank you once again. Rishita, Swapnali, over to you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manish.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for your time and presentation. It was wonderful having all panel members and the insights. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all panel members.